All right, so welcome everybody to this remote interview. My name is Lisette and I'm interviewing people and companies doing great things remotely. And today on the line, all the way from the Bay Area in California, I have Arvind Jain. And Arvind, you're the co-founder of Glean, which is a work assistant and knowledge management platform, We're going to be diving into that in a second, but let's start with the first question, which is, what does your virtual office look like? And what do you need to get your work done?
Thanks, Lisette, for inviting me. Really excited to share, details about how we work at Glean. My virtual office. So first of all, I'm a hybrid worker. So we spend a few days working from our office in Palo Alto, and then we also spend, a few days from working from home. And so today is our work from home day. It's Thursday. We, normally work on from home on Tuesdays and Thursdays. And this is my home office. It's in the corner of my bedroom. this is
many of us.
So yeah, I got my desk here with my laptop, mic, video camera set up. It works fine. I actually, interestingly, I have more space here now than we have in our office because we're growing so fast and running out of space there. So yeah, so this is so that's what we do, and then we also go and work in person a few days a week. As our company allows people to come in when they want and have work from the office, but also work from home. So it's a hybrid model that way.
All right, we're going to dive into the hybrid model as well, just because I know so many companies that are struggling with that. So we want to get the secrets to your success there. But let's dive into a little bit about Glean and what Glean is. And I said in the beginning, it's a work assistant and knowledge management platform, but it is so much more than that. It says that you helped to found it because you wanted to make it easy for people to find the information that they need to be more productive and happy at work. So tell us about what does that mean? What does Glean do?
Yeah, so Glean is it helps people, just like you said, it helps people find information that they need to get their job done and get it done quickly. In today's world, if you think about the modern workplace, first, the way we work now is that people are actually increasingly working from home. A lot of us actually don't have people sitting next to us, when we have questions, but we need answers, to get our job done. So, that's one phenomena. As the world gets more distributed, it's harder, for people to have that quick help. Just going, walking up to somebody, getting their questions answered. The second thing is that in the world of technology today, the way businesses use technology it has changed fundamentally from how it was 10 years back. Businesses are using a very large number of enterprise applications to meet their different business needs. And as an individual, you tend to have to work with many of those applications. So the information that you're looking for, it's spread across, say 10 or 20 different applications that you work with on a daily basis. So when you're looking for answers, sometimes when you're looking for information, you don't exactly know where to go and look for that. Should I be, let's say that, you and I had a conversation, but I don't remember where it happened. Where it happened, in email or over Slack, or as part of, doing a discussion in a Google Doc, or, discussing an issue in Jira. There's so many different places where that same conversation could have happened. And now if I want to just go back and look at it, I don't remember where it is. So people spend an inordinate amount of time looking for information as they do their jobs every day, and we want to simplify that for them. So imagine me at home. I have a question. I want that one place where I can go and ask that question without having to worry about was it in system 1 or system 2 or system 10, right? And that's what Glean is. So Glean, you can come and ask questions, and we'll bring the right answers back to you, the right information that you need from whichever system it was present. And sometimes information may be present in multiple systems. We'll bring all of that back to you. So that's what Glean does essentially, at a high level. Is it's a question answering service. It's a search engine It helps answer your questions. But then it goes beyond that. It also helps you discover the new information that's relevant to you, helps you stay connected with your company as a whole in this new distributed, sort of workplace.
So why can't we just organize our files better? I mean, that sounds like, the obvious answer is of like, okay, but we've got file management systems and that, why is it going so wrong? Is it just the use of so many different apps, or that people, like say, give them the ideal all you want, nobody's going to organize the files all that well. And in fact, I've heard of companies actually putting a role in place for somebody to be like the remote office manager and organize the file system for other people. So why doesn't that work?
Yeah, that's a good question. So one thing is that the amount of information that exists in a business, it's very large. If you have a 2,000 people company, all of those folks are actually creating information, and hiring one person who is going to then organize all of that information is not feasible. And
Sounds like a terrible job, actually.
And it's actually hard, like, organizing content, takes a good amount of effort, and often people don't have that time. Like, I'm trying to get a job done. For that, I need to write a document. I'll write it. I'll share it with, whoever I wanted to, needed to share it with. I didn't have that extra time to go and organize it in some kind of a nice hierarchy. That's all additional work, right? And so it's a paradigm, shift, like, the same way, like, on the internet, like, people these days, when you're looking for information, you just go to Google and search for it. You don't actually rely on the information on the internet, nicely organized, in a hierarchy like it used to be in the old days with Yahoo. Right? That's not the way of information consumption anymore. So it's the same concept exists in the workplace. There will be a lot of information, and the only way for you to be able to get to it is by having a good search, functionality over it.
So basically, Glean is like the Google. It's like an enterprise, a specific enterprise version of Google, but just for your company and the apps that you're connected to, I'm assuming. So can you connect with any app, or are there just specific apps that you can connect to?
Yeah, so Glean connects with most of the modern popular applications, enterprise applications, and that library is expanding. So as we sign up more customers, if they have an application that we haven't yet built in a connector to, then we will go and build that for them. So
all right. So I've been reading your hybrid workplace habits and hangout surveys, and in there's a really interesting statistic, which is 45% of people think that the way companies organize their information is stuck in the dark ages. What does that mean exactly? Is it just that, we're all organizing it in different ways and that's what makes it so hard? What does the dark ages look like?
Yeah, so in the like, say, if you go back 15 years from now, the way information in a company would get stored was that you would buy a storage system, a file-based storage system, and then you would go and put content in there. Every department may get like a top level folder, and then you would start to sort of organize information under that. And it's it's a very hard system to maintain. The information would get stored there, and usually, like, over time, that information will become stale and out of date, and there's a lot of stuff there, and most of the stuff is garbage that people don't really like. If I even go and look for something, I see a document, I don't know whether I should be using it or not. I have no confidence. So that is the and that needs to make, that needs to change, because what has happened is now the cost of storing the documents is actually low. You can actually, like, for example, I'll ask you this question, like, how many documents have you written over the last 1 year? Well, you probably wrote some number.
Yeah,
how many,
a lot.
and how many did you delete? Did you actually delete?
Yeah, none. Yeah,
Yeah,
none.
exactly.
I mean, I'm thinking about my own Google Drive as we're talking, and it's a mess.
So the because it's like there is no generally the cost of storing documents is low, so people just create, like nobody has time to delete. So ultimately, what you end up with is this big mess of there's a lot of knowledge in your company, a lot of documents accumulated over a decade or more. A lot of them are obsolete and out of date, and there's no governance or control over, hey, which information is still up to date and live, and something that I should consume versus not. And that's the reality of today, how companies have their knowledge organized and managed. And that has to change, and that has to change to a more modern approach where you can um, identify what are the most important pieces of content or knowledge in your company, give more love and care to it, keep it up to date and fresh, and also automatically start to weed out content that is becoming obsolete and can actually hurt people. So that's really what I meant. People, when we talk to people, everybody say that, hey, our knowledge is a mess. Like, so then mostly they're talking about this content becoming really stale and also not properly organized.
Right. And the other statistic that stood out to me in your report was that people are spending up to 2 hours a day looking for information. And I can relate. I mean, the amount of times where I've duplicated my efforts on a project that I didn't even work on that long ago. I just didn't even remember. And all of a sudden I'm like, oh, I did this already. I mean, it's kind of amazing, like I did it twice and I didn't remember. So I can imagine if you put this on a global company of 2,000 people, clearly it's getting out of control. So the one of the things that I read on the website, it says that you've been able to make in-person, hybrid, and remote work for you at Glean. So tell us a little bit about what you mean by that. So did it start as an in-person company and then move to hybrid through the pandemic? Give us a little an overview of how Glean worked.
Yeah, so we started as an in-person company 1 year before the pandemic, and then of course we shifted to all remote as we went through that time where everybody had to work from home, and during that phase, some of our team members also moved. So like we were a 100% Bay Area based company, and then some people started to move around within the country. Now, and then we also, once we were all remote, um, to we ended up also having folks in India additionally as another team of ours. And then the became going back to office became possible last year. So we went back to the office in July, and so now you have this interesting situation. So some people are in the Bay Area and they can come to the office. Some of them can no longer come to the office because they're no longer in the Bay Area, and then some of them are actually working while we're sleeping, and so because they're in a different time zone. And within Bay Area also, like people have the freedom to choose. They typically, we recommend people to come on 3 days a week, and then work from home the other 2 days. So that's the environment. So if you think about this, this environment, like a lot of things you have to be very actively thinking about, like how you're going to make people communicate well in this model, and keep everybody on the same page and execute efficiently. So we do a lot of things around that, and would love to share more, but that's how our current office situation is.
All right. And is there a mandate like that people have? You mentioned in the beginning that you have some people, or you're working at home on Tuesdays and Thursdays. So what did your company decide to do in that respect? Is it a mandate, or is it just people can work, they can choose to work at home or at the office? How
Yeah.
did you set that up?
Initially, we started that as a mandate, so where we wanted people who are in Bay Area to come to the office on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, we wanted them to save commute time. We wanted them to have a break, they commute a day, then they get a break. And that's why we chose this model where Tuesday and Thursday are working from home. But then after we started, very quickly, the mask mandate came back again, and then you have to be, masked up in the office. So, and we didn't want to, we didn't want to, force people to actually come and be masked the whole day. I mean, that doesn't make sense. So then it became optional. So it's optional now. Like, people choose what works for them. But typically, what we have noticed is that people do like to come to the office. So we have most of our people coming to the office on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday.
I can imagine. I know that some people really miss working together with the team, and some people really love working remotely. So it just seems like the future of work is choice all of a sudden, that, that everybody gets to choose. What are some of the big challenges that you ran into in this hybrid model? What are some of the things that are tough for your team?
Yeah. And I think these are things that probably all hybrid teams are going to face as problems. The biggest one is that you have, like, any team now has some people who are remote or in a different time zone, and some people are in the office. So if you're going to have, like, say there's a design discussion that you want to have on a given topic, how do you do that? Like, the 4 people, they just go and walk up to people's desks, in the office and start doing that discussion. If you do that, then the other people who are not in the office are no longer part of it. And they're going to miss that context. And over time, it will be, it will basically become clear that if you're a remote worker, you are at a disadvantage, right? Because you don't get to participate in all those conversations that happen impromptu or in the office. So you have to be careful around that. So there are different strategies that we use to solve for that. But that's one of the biggest problems, is that basically now some people are more connected relative to others. That's one big challenge of a hybrid organization, that it's not doesn't put everybody at the same footing.
So what have you done to mitigate that?
Yeah, so there are few things to think about there. One is, as a company, we are promoting people, like, asking them to use technology to mitigate with that. So now, one thing is that, like, when you want to have discussions, we want people to write them up. We want people to actually create a Google Doc and propose the the technical discussion that they want to have in there, outline their initial thoughts, get people to comment on the doc itself, and everybody can comment on the document. Right? It doesn't matter where you are, and, like, get the discussion going on the document or in Slack, like, and try to, like, complete all discussions that way. And that way, yeah, it works it works a lot of times. So that way, it actually, like, I personally feel like, it's actually, even if everybody was in the office, that's a better way to get, to do, discussions efficiently, because when you write up things, there's a clarity of thought, and when you're trying to comment on it, you read everything, you are on the same page, and you won't actually, like, if you're all in the room, people can come without reading, without having enough context. They will ask repeated questions. Conversations can be inefficient. So it's a good way to do technical discussions. Is, you write up the topic in a document, invite people to put in comments, and try to resolve them all online. And sometimes, like, becomes difficult. So ultimately, you can then finally say that, okay, like, now we've done a lot of work. There are a few open questions still, which it might be more efficient to now talk in person about it. And by talk in person, I say, then you can actually do a Zoom or a Google Meets call, and do it in a time zone friendly manner, so that everybody can attend and complete that conversation. So the more you can follow that practice, the better it is for us. And it's better for posterity, like, these discussions, like, 'cause everybody forgets, like, 6 months down the line, I won't remember why we did a certain thing a certain way. And so if it is all documented, it actually also helps the company for the future, for the new employees who are going to be joining. So that's one big that's one like big one practice that we keep trying to encourage people to follow. It is not easy, because it's so much easier for me to just look over my shoulder and ask the person sitting next to me, hey, how should we do this? Right? I mean, like writing it in doc and all is more work. So it's a work in progress that way. And then the second thing is how you organize teams. So since we have people who are remote and then people who are in the Bay Area, when you establish teams, so we'd like to build teams in two different ways. One, everybody in the team is local, or everybody in the team is remote, so that like everybody is feels that they're on the same they're the same sort of, nobody's disadvantaged in that sense. So that's the model. Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah. So I'm just repeating back though what you said. So you've got, when you're forming your teams, you've got teams that are going to be local and they're always going to work in person or hybrid. What I'm assuming they're choosing. And then those who are remote or in other countries or in other states that they've moved to in the US, then you're forming teams around the remote participants. So they're going to be all remote for the most part. That's really interesting.
And that's something that we're starting to do. I mean, we actually right now still are largely based out of Bay Area. So, but as we grow more, that's going to become, we're going to have more remote people. So that's the model. And we actually, we embrace that model. I don't remember now where we learned about this, but it was not our creation. Like, we heard about it and we felt, it made sense. And that's why we're embracing it.
Yeah, that seems to make a lot of sense. And I really like the idea of the decisions and documents or just writing things down, because in a way you're visualizing an idea with the team by writing it down, whether it's with words or with pictures, you can visualize something. And since you're Glean, you can always search and find all of the documents and decisions that you've
That's
created.
right.
Because one of the things that it seems like is really difficult for teams right now, especially when we've all gone remote or hybrid, is the amount of information that gets generated. And as people go more asynchronous, which is like a big topic, right? Is we want to reduce the number of meetings that we need by having more asynchronous communication. But that also causes the need for an information architecture or an information management system. And it sounds like what you've done is sort of bypass this whole, like, you don't actually need to create a fancy information architecture. You just need to put in Glean, and then Glean will search wherever. I mean, you do need to have some sort of an organization system, right? You can't leave it to the wild west in that regard, but Glean certainly would help.
That's a good point. So from a information consumption point of view, it's easier for people to search and find things and consume them. And the one thing that Glean does, is that it understands people in the company, and it also understands what your information needs are. Like if you are in a marketing team versus in the engineering team, it would know that what pieces of knowledge in the company are more relevant to you versus not. So some of that, like, the things that you get from organizing content, is a smart search system is able to actually sort of bring that organization just by understanding, activity of people and understanding their roles and their needs. So that organizations happens automatically, right? But it's also, you're right that it's not enough. So we also, like, within Glean, we do offer some lightweight mechanisms for teams to organize content. For example, we have a notion of tagging or collections where, as a HR team, for example, you can create a bunch of, materials, and you don't have to organize them, in folders or hierarchy, but you can basically just quickly tag them to say that, hey, these are all, documents related to benefits. And so that sort of becomes one way to do that lightweight, organization of content, which then makes it also easy for people to consume them in a more structured or hierarchical fashion.
Oh, I love it. Yeah, tagging seems like an easier way to do things than file folders and sort of an old infrastructure. So we're running out of time, but I do have a couple of other questions. One question is team building. Now that you're in this hybrid mode, that's one of the things that everybody missed during the pandemic. And I just keep reminding people it wasn't remote work causing the lack of team building. I mean, we're in a pandemic, right? And, we're sort of forced into this situation in survival mode. But now as we go back to this hybrid way of working, how are you guys dealing with the team building aspect on your team?
Yeah, the great question. So one thing, that we do for teams that are remote, as an example. So they get to actually do, offsites, where they would actually come once a quarter. And they actually come to the office. It's interesting, like, the offsite has sort of become on-site in that sense that, people actually, everybody comes to the office once a quarter, like spends a week with each other, and like, just like, both, work together, plan, like what we're going to do in the next one quarter, and also have some fun, like, go, do some events together locally. So that's sort of one thing that we've been doing, is bringing the remote teams, um, together in one place. This last month, we had everybody, spend a week in Santa Cruz and Bay Area. Like everybody, came from, different parts of the country, and including, a person coming from Australia, to here. So that's sort of one mechanism to, build those bonds. But it's very important. Like when we were fully remote, like when the pandemic sort of started and remote work was the only option, we didn't know this. So initially, and we also couldn't get together at that time. So it definitely felt that, the bonds become weak and the team sort of starts to drift apart. And so it's very important, if your team is remote, to actually bring them together, and bring them together at least, once a quarter, because that's when it actually feels like a team. Doesn't, otherwise it's going to just feel like you work by yourself. So that's one thing that we do. We tried other approaches, other things, like for example, we would do these virtual tea time, like, like 3 p.m. there's a tea time, Zoom, meeting, and but it didn't work for us. Like it worked, nice initially, but then sort of loses steam after some time. And like, like I was like, sometimes I would join and I was the only one drinking tea, on that Zoom call.
Right.
So I think
Right.
so like I think like fully online, just using video conferencing, and that felt like, that doesn't do the job. Like you have to actually, fly people, like get in and get at the same physical location. There's no replacement for that face to face, like actually people really being together.
Yeah, nothing like a big pile of nachos and a couple of beers or drinks to get people together. It's true. We haven't replicated that yet in the virtual space. I think it's a long way from, with all the cool technology that does exist, even with the Microsoft HoloLens and all of these cool things, it's still not the same as just hanging out over a big pile of nachos together. That's for sure. And then one last question that I have is the infrastructure at your office, and I mean like the meeting rooms and conference calls, did you have to make any adjustments to that to account for the hybrid model?
Yeah, actually, in fact, we are going to be getting a new office, and we're going to put like the learnings from how things didn't work for us in our current office into the new one. So one thing is that, if you're hybrid, then you need like, you need a lot more meeting rooms, as an example. Like, we the same ratio that we, let's say like, hey, have 5 meeting rooms, per, like per, like, say 4,000 square feet, which used to work before when everybody was in person, because like you would go into a room only for like group meetings or customer calls. But now, like almost like, even if you're meeting some, one person, they might be remote, and you need a meeting room for that. So I think like it's like putting stress on that open floor plan kind of design, sort of not working well, if your team is hybrid. And imagine like going back to the old, like, the previous generation design, where, everybody has their room or a cube, where they're working from. And certainly, that feels like maybe that works better, because if you need to just do like a quick, one-on-one with somebody, you can just do it from your cube without disturbing others. So yeah, it's interesting learnings there, like and of course you need to invest in good AV hardware and all that. But the main thing that we felt, which was like severely underplanned for us, was how many meeting rooms we had.
Right, because if you have even one remote person on the team, you're going to
Yeah.
need to, yeah, it's going to be different than Yeah,
exactly.
then not. So then you're going to have a separate room for it. All right. And so, okay, last two questions, and they're easy ones. The first one is, if somebody wanted to start out with Glean, for example, what advice would you give? I mean, clearly, you know, contacting you, but like, what should people be thinking about before they embark on this sort of knowledge management platform?
So as a customer, you mean like you're going to use the Glean product? Um, I mean, Glean is actually really easy. Like in many ways, it's familiar. Is feels like Google. Like, you know, just start using our tool and like just ask questions. So it's like you don't have to actually like do a whole bunch of learning. Like it's actually helpful to the team. Like what we recommend is that if you are thinking about like enabling your employees, making them more productive, and then just come visit our website. You know, there's a form there. Submit your request, and our team will contact you and get you set up on Glean.
Great. And I'm assuming it's using artificial intelligence for all of this fancy search capabilities and getting to know people. There's a whole
Absolutely.
right
Search.
magic behind it.
That's right. I'm glad you used the word magic, because I always tell people that, hey, Google is like magic, right? You can go ask any question, somehow it has answer to it, and the same is true for Glean. Like, in your work life, we whenever you have a question, Glean will have those answers. So that means we also have to build all of that magic behind the scenes using artificial
Right.
intelligence and machine learning.
Amazing. Amazing. Every day we get closer to dancing with the robots, right? But it's awesome, because who wants to spend 2 hours of the day looking for information or redoing work that you've already done? So bring on the robots, I say. Let them do the boring work, and we can do the interesting stuff. All right, very last question, Arvind, which is, if people want to learn more about Glean, I'll of course have that in the show notes on the website. But if people want to get in touch with you, where's the best place to get in touch with you? Where on social media do you live most?
So on LinkedIn for me personally. Would love to have people connect with me there. And then our website is glean.com. There's also a form there to get in touch with us. So we welcome everyone to come and talk to us. We like to tell people about Glean, so looking forward to that.
I bet, and it's a real issue that that's trying to be solved here. So I hope that people try things out. Arvind, thank you so much for your time today and for telling the story about how your team works and what Glean does. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for inviting me to this.
All right, until next time, everybody, be powerful.